Actors before and after they got the call from Marvel. After an actor or actress gets famous, they rarely leave the house without being camera ready. But in the years before they became a household name, they were often just like the rest of us. In other words, they also rolled out of bed 15 minutes before work and gave themselves a quick once over in the mirror, found nothing to be outrageously wrong, then headed out the door. So sometimes you're able to find some pretty shocking pictures of celebrities before they hit it big, looking nothing like they look in the movies they're famous for. Believe it or not, Robert Downey Jr. didn't always have perfectly coiffed hair and a goatee sculpted with military precision. And Benedict Cumberbatch, well, let's just say he wasn't always the sex symbol with an entire country's worth of fangirls that he is today. Here are 8 Marvel actors before they answered the call. Number 1. Robert Downey Jr. Some men are like a bottle of good wine. They're not bad if you open them up and enjoy them in their youth, but if you leave them in a dusty cupboard for a couple of decades, they'll get that much better. Okay, that metaphor kind of dissolved, but what we're trying to say is that Robert Downey Jr. has aged like a fine frickin' wine. When he was younger, he was certainly not a bad-looking man. In fact, he looked pretty darn dashing totting that links around on his back in what we hope is a shot from a movie. But something about the passing of time treated Robert Downey Jr. particularly well. While aging normally takes a toll on our physical appearance, it only improved Robert's plus. It looked like he got in better roles as he got older. No offense to whatever movie that is, but we are just not buying Robert as a shirtless mountain man toting a stuffed cat around on his back.
Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Number 2. Chris Pratt. This is probably one of the most dramatic movie transformation in history of superhero movies. Famed for playing the role of the slightly chubby dweeb in Parks and Recreation, Chris Pratt was one of the last people you'd have imagined as playing a ripped intergalactic superhero in the Marvel movie. But after he lost a ton of weight and transformed his torso into the very definition of eye candy, Chris Pratt became a contender for the role of the charming yet deliciously awkward Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, he's become one of the many sexy Chris's to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although he may be Peter Quill now, to many of us he'll always remain that geeky Andy Dwyer who won all of our hearts. Number 3. Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh, Benedict. Although he may be the ultimate sex symbol these days, he didn't always have that reputation. Before the role of Sherlock Holmes in BBC's Sherlock catapulted those infamous cheekbones into the spotlight around the world, Benedict usually played characters that weren't famed for their sex appeal so much as their horn-rimmed glasses. As hard as a nerdy Benedict is to imagine, given the way his unconventional good looks have won the heart of Cumberbatches around the world, that sultry British accent, those intense blue eyes, and that tree-like figure didn't always have the star power they have today. But in the post-Sherlock world, everything about Benedict seems to captivate audiences worldwide. From that one-of-a-kind facial structure to that tongue twister of a name. Number 4. Chris Evans. With a guy like Chris Evans, it's kind of hard to believe he was ever not the stud he is today. Between the perfect facial structure, the pools of desire he calls eyes, and the chiseled torso, he comes across as one of those guys that has been hot all his life. And to be honest, he probably has been. With a base like Chris's, there's really not much you can do to make yourself anything less than a solid 8 out of 10. So although he may not have always looked exactly like a Greek god in the way he does these days, he was never a bad-looking dude. He just looked a little less like the captain of the Avengers and more like that one dude at your high school who uses the word bro in every single sentence.
You're on fire! Thanks, you're pretty good too!
Number 5. Chris Hemsworth.
Thor, son of Odin.
Surtur, son of a bitch, you're still alive.
Chris Hemsworth is another one of those guys who is pretty darn hard to picture as not hot. From that perfectly formed torso to his well-defined bone structure, he basically won the genetic lottery, so no matter what he does to himself, whether he someday decides to shave his head or get the cool guy tips, we're pretty sure Chris Hemsworth will always be an 11 out of 10. Even in his slightly awkward picture from when he was younger, he hadn't yet completed his transformation into the demigod from Asgard we all know and love. He was still probably one of the hottest guys in the room. Yes, even wearing a t-shirt with a tiger on it, Hemsworth can pull pretty much anything off. And they look good with it, literally pulled off too, as evidenced by that last picture. Number 6. Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman is another one of those guys who was probably never anything less than the second most handsome boy in his class. Marvel just cannot get enough of its handsome leading men. Apparently with Hugh, he got pretty much everything, from the perfectly coiffed hair that resembles Wolverine ears, to the chiseled cheekbones, to the slab of carved marble he's passing off as a torso. Plus, he's got the talent to match his incredible looks, able to play everything from an alcoholic superhero with a knack for cussing at inopportune moments to a kind-hearted prisoner who breaks his parole to pursue a life with greater purpose.
I spent a lot of years trying to bring you down, bub. How's that work out for you? You're like me. You're a survivor.
Number 7. Ryan Reynolds. Although Ryan Reynolds could never not be attractive, he sure gave it its best shot in the picture. His basic facial features are pretty much impossible to make unattractive, but when you frame that gorgeous face with whatever the heck was going on with his hair in this picture, and that little wisp of a goatee he seemed to think was a good idea, then he's starting to veer into some pretty questionable territory. Yes, he is still objectively one of the best looking men we've ever laid eyes upon, but the fashion choices in the picture makes us want to shout one thing and one thing only: why? Well, at least he smartened up in the end and started wearing red skin-tight leather in Deadpool. Now that's a look we can get behind. Number 8. Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, it's kind of hard to find an awkward picture of Gwyneth Paltrow. She's one of those people who's probably never taken a bad photo, ever. Even when she first gets out of bed, starved of caffeine, food, and in that half-sleep state in which most of us look like nothing more than hungry zombies, we have no doubt Gwyneth Paltrow looks like a freaking supermodel. Heck, we wouldn't even be that surprised if she exuded some sort of gentle light. She just seems like that kind of person that would glow. You know, between her perfect genes and her talent for styling, there's just no way Gwyneth Paltrow has ever allowed a less than stellar photograph to be taken of her. The only photo we could find verging on imperfect was this one. And even here, she looks pretty darn perfect, if a bit rebellious. Number 9. Chadwick Boseman. Continue to rest in power, Chadwick. Back in the day, Chadwick Boseman dabbled in the art of writing rather than acting. While most of us were freaking out over prom or slowly dissolving into the couch during Friends marathons, Chadwick was writing his first play, and his writing would go on to win awards. He only studied acting in the first place in an attempt to relate to the people he had been working with most in the theater. Well, thank goodness he fell in love with the trade and went on to audition for the role of Black Panther, because we can't imagine anyone else bringing T'Challa to life quite in the way Chadwick did. Yeah, we know, we say that for every Marvel actor, but it's true, okay? The casting directors just pick them really freaking well. Number 10. Paul Rudd. When Marvel announced that Paul Rudd would be playing Ant-Man, it was somehow both a shock and totally unsurprising at the same time. On one hand, it was hard to imagine how on earth the slightly dweeby Paul Rudd from Friends and I Love You Man was going to pull off playing a superhero. We mean, the guy is a good actor, but not exactly the kind of person that comes to mind when you think Avenger. But on the other hand, if Paul Rudd were to play any superhero, it would most certainly be the one that shrinks down to the size of an insect and rides on ants around the town. Somehow that image kind of works, and Rudd went on to show us what a fantastic ant-sized superhero he really makes. Number 11. Tom Holland. Pretty much any picture of Tom Holland before he got famous is going to be pretty darn shocking. But this isn't because he was particularly odd looking or anything like that. No, it's because Tom Holland's name was hitting the headlines when he was at the age most of us were still trying to figure out what the heck puberty was. Pretty much all the photos of him before he started starring in Hollywood movies are of an adorable little child who can be pretty hard to reconcile with the six-pack tooting 24-year-old from Spider-Man Homecoming. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.